welcome to PA History to Go, a series of videos presented by the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission with funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. These short videos, filmed at locations along the Pennsylvania Trails of History, serve to introduce virtual visitors to our sites as we explore the varied stories that make up Pennsylvania's rich history. Watch them all to learn about the people, places, industries, and events that make Pennsylvania so special.
When you're visiting the Pennsylvania Military Museum, the obvious is you're not in Germany, you're not in France, you're not off of the Pacific campaigns. So we really are unable to do place-based learning. But what we can do is bring those places to central Pennsylvania. And we do that through the use of tangible objects, things that you can touch, things that you can feel, things that you can smell, things that you can try on. And those things, those tangible objects, are the links to the past that allow us to bring out those personal stories. So when you come to the museum and the grounds and programs, those programs highlight all of the stories of the Commonwealth. It's here because of the heritage of the site. The heritage of the site being that it was actually machine gun training grounds for a local company of men, Company A, 107th Machine Gun Company, just prior to World War I. And that's where you really get the site today being a historic site. It's used for that training grounds. It's used for the readiness and the preparedness movement. They ship off to war as part of the American Expeditionary Force, and then, as they say, the rest is history. So as visitors come to the site, usually the first thing they see are the static displays in the shrine. And for us as staff, those are also the first things and the last things that we see as we depart the site. And so it's a very evocative way to welcome guests to the site, is the monuments, the displays. The shrine itself, its heritage actually dates back to World War I. Again, to the heritage and history of the site. So with a museum and the monuments, you don't usually have both together. So we're rather unique that way. The layout of the grounds, the landscape architecture of the grounds lends itself to a really awesome self-guided tour, but it also lends itself to sometimes more exploration of the Commonwealth's story of service, sacrifice, and innovation. First thing you're actually going to see is the red pine forest out at the entrance. And that's supposed to be the Hurtgen Forest of World War II, the Sherman tank sitting inside of it. As you then traverse a little bit further in, you're going to see the battleship guns of the USS Pennsylvania. So the USS Pennsylvania guns are going to greet you, and those are the biggest things on the grounds. They're 45 feet long, and they weigh more than 145,000 pounds each. We're loosely called the home port of the USS Pennsylvania. The USS Pennsylvania's story actually begins in the Woodside ship time period, and eventually stretches forward the whole way to today's nuclear-powered subs, such as the USS Pennsylvania, Silent Marine Service, of course. The Pennsylvania was actually in dry dock at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, and by noon on December 7th, she had already expended more than 65,000 rounds of ammunition in response to the Japanese attack. And the commander of the ship had said that the only thing that he was worried about was the zeal of which they were returning fire against the enemy forces. And when we say the past, we're not just talking about 100 years ago. The past is even yesterday. So by using the veterans in our volunteer service corps, these veterans, these men and women, can tell their personal stories, not just to their families, but to the national and international citizens that visit the museum. So what we do is we leverage their abilities, their memories, to bring out those personal stories and connections, so that you're not just talking about big metal objects. You're not just talking about a piece of artillery. You're talking about that man or woman who fired that piece in combat. You're talking about that woman's story, perhaps, as an intelligence officer. You're talking about that combat gunner, that pilot, the nurse, the rescuer, the pararescueman. You're talking about these stories, and that's the important part. So when you come to the museum, those programs, those events are what really brings out the stories of the inanimate objects. And that's what allows people to make those connections to the past. So you're bringing the tangible and intangible, using universal concepts as the link.